The monastery in Fire Emblem 3 houses can be a bit overwhelming at times, with how much there is to manage, how many activities there are, and figuring out how to spend your limited amount of activity points, all while managing your students' growth and development. I personally have over 800 hours in total playtime in Fire Emblem 3 houses. I've beaten all 4 routes on maddening mode without New Game Plus multiple times, so it's safe to say I know how to optimize Monastery and what activities are the best and which ones you can avoid. In this video, I will be breaking down the Monastery and explaining only the important parts of it that you should focus on your runs. Then at the end, I will lay out how to approach every single month in the game so you can properly optimize your own playthrough of Monastery and get through it as quickly and efficiently as possible. I will be explaining Monastery as if you were playing it on a normal new game playthrough, because we all know that New Game Plus completely breaks the game and allows you to skip Monastery altogether. This way, instead of pulling up multiple search pages for multiple aspects of Monastery, you have all the important information right here in one video for you to reference whenever you need. I also want to point out that this guide will not feature the Abyss, so you can accomplish this guide without the DLC. Now let's jump right into it. What will this guide accomplish? If you want to optimize Monastery, you first need to know what you want to accomplish by Chapter 12. Or the route split in the game. Let me lay out what I will be helping you achieve in this video. We'll be going for max professor level by chapter 11 and getting all students recruited into your class without having to train Byleth using any activity points to rank up a particular skill of his. Maxing Byleth's professor level should be your absolute top priority. Having the highest professor level not only increases your monthly funding, but also gives you more battles, more activity points, and allows you to easily recruit more students into your army through more activities. The greenhouse. Look, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. You're going to want to grow root vegetable seeds. There are a few reasons to this, and I'll explain them here right now. Number 1, food is going to be the core of our recruiting and professor rank plan for all of part 1. The root vegetable seeds provide us with all the food we need and more for this run. There are other seeds that provide better foods like the Noah fruit, for example, but we'll be staying with root vegetables for now. The second reason is that it provides Ambroisas, a defense +1 stat booster. While Eastern Fodland seeds also grow Ambroisas, they don't provide the food you will need for part 1, since the shops won't sell other foods besides poultry and wild game. We need to avoid Eastern Fodland seeds for this reason. The final reason why we want to grow root vegetable seeds are that the foods they grow are well liked by all units in any house that you decide to lead. More on this later. For the greenhouse, you want to visit it every exploration period we choose to do during any given month. More on this later. You also want to buy a bunch of these seeds from the shops as early as possible. Again, more on this later. Just grow root vegetable seeds, give them the best available fertilizer you have, and continue farming them. If you are tight on funds, make sure that the greenhouse is first priority for your available funds. If you can't afford to fertilize, sell items until you can. Greenhouse is the main pillar of this guide, and if you can't afford to grow food, you won't be able to get anywhere in part 1 with our goals. Food is the fuel, and you need to be sure that greenhouse is your first priority on any exploration. Not only are you gaining food for keeping your students motivated, but you are also gaining what is, in my opinion, the most valuable stat booster in the game. In my opinion, defense is the most important stat in the game for a maddening run. You won't be doubling very many units in a maddening run, and you will be getting doubled quite a lot. So you've got to be able to tank enemy units, and having a solid tank or giving help to your squishy units can make a world of a difference in any maddening run on any route. Dining and recruiting. If the greenhouse is the fuel, then the dining hall is the motor. The greenhouse will be providing the food, and the dining hall will be using it to generate new units through recruitment and a whole lot of professor experience. Let me explain more in detail. We will start with the professor experience side of this. When you feed 2 units in the dining hall, you will gain experience based on how well each student you dined with enjoyed the meal. If they like the meal, they will have a blue arrow next to their portrait. If they dislike the meal, the arrow will be red. Make sure when you feed your students, you are feeding them a meal that they both enjoy. If both students enjoy the meal, you will gain 200 professor experience points. If they both dislike the meal, you'll only get 100. See why this matters? This can make a difference of anywhere between 100 and 900 professor experience points per every exploration period. This is why growing root vegetables in greenhouse is important. It will allow you to reach a wide variety of meals that anyone in your house will enjoy. This will allow you to maximize the amount of professor experience you get. Now let's talk about the recruiting process through meals. While you can train Bile with an individual skills using professor points, while also increasing your support rank with said unit you want to recruit, this isn't really necessary unless you want to get a unit as soon as possible. I will talk more about both of these later on. For dining though, you will want to use all, that's right, all of your professor activity points here during any exploration period during any month. Through dining, you will not only get a lot of professor experience, but you will also build support really quickly with the units you dine with. I will deep dive on this and alternatives later on in this video, so just bear with me on this. So how should you go about this? First, dine with the students in your immediate class that you are teaching. If they get lectured, they get fed first. There is no exception to this. Once all of your instructed students are fed and motivated, you then want to use your remaining points to feed students you want to recruit. This, as I said earlier, will allow you to get them up to B rank support very quickly if you're consistent. But I'll talk more in depth on that and recruiting here in a little bit. Dining is super simple and straightforward. Just feed your instructed units first, then your prospects second until you're out of activity points. Shops. This section of the video is going to be a little vague, but trust me, I will explain all later on in this video. The shops will only become available once you complete the Clearing the Way quest in part 1 during the Verdant Rain Moon. This quest needs to be a top priority anytime we do a battle in part 1. Again, more on this later. When it comes time to do a battle in Verdant Rain Moon, your first battle should be this quest to unlock the merchants. Once we have the merchants and shops unlocked, you want to do a few things. First, you want to purchase about 20 or so root vegetable seeds. See the section of this video on the greenhouses for more information. The second thing you want to purchase is all, that's right, all of the fishing bait available. If you cannot afford all the fishing bait, sell items until you can, or purchase them at a later exploration when you have more gold. I will explain the importance of this part in a little bit. Just know that a part of your monthly funds should be allocated to purchasing all of the fishing bait the shops sell at the beginning of every month. However, do not use any of the fishing bait at the pond until a specific time, and I'll specify that here in a little bit. How recruiting works. Recruitment is a very important part of this guide. Even if you don't want to use a unit in your starting lineup, you should still recruit them anyways for their paralogs and the free gold that comes with them. For example, you should always recruit Lorenz in any playthrough because by recruiting him, you get his paralog to earn Thyrsus, one of the best items in the entire game. All students have a list of requirements that need to be met in order to be recruited by asking them. However, that isn't the only way to recruit somebody. When you get a B rank support with a unit, they have a low RNG chance of asking to join your house during any free day, which is defined as any day that isn't Sunday. This can be RNG abused, so if you get a unit to B rank support and they don't ask to join your house during the week, you can just reload your save and go again and rinse and repeat until they ask to join your house. If you're desperate, of course. If you want to approach a student during Monastery and ask them to join your house, you need to meet a certain list of criteria that each student has. They will all have a level or stat requirement in addition to a level of skill in a class of their choice. The higher your support with said student, the lower the requirement in each category is. Serenesforest has an incredible guide that outlines this. I'll leave a link to that page in the description. This isn't necessary, as just through dining and being patient, every unit will eventually ask to join your house. You just gotta be patient with them. Renown. There isn't a whole lot to say about Renown in this game. However, there is one thing that needs to be said about how to handle Renown. It really doesn't matter which statues you work on restoring or in which order you do them in. Your priority with them should be, though, to rush the EXP plus 5% on all 4 statues. After that, it's up to you and what you want to invest in. EXP plus 5% should be your top priority for obvious reasons, especially in maddening mode where it halves your EXP gain. You can push for the plus 10 EXP gain, but that is a late game achievement if you don't use Abyss. And even then, by late game, your team should be perfectly well established to where the extra experience gain won't have too big of an impact. But again, it's up to you and what works for your team. Fishing. Okay, so this is going to be a controversial one, but the fishing pond is essential to getting maxed out professor rank in part 1. It's just gonna take a while. So you remember in the shop section of this video where I told you to purchase all fishing bait at the start of every month? Well, now it's time to teach you when to use them. On the first free day on the ethereal moon, there is an event in Monastery called Fistfuls of Fish. This event gives you 2 to 4 fish per each catch instead of the normal single fish per catch. Here on screen is a table of fish that you can catch in 3 houses and how much experience you gain for each fish. Instead of gaining only 10 to 40 experience per bait, on Fistfuls of Fish, you can gain anywhere from 20 to 160 experience per bait. This also will give you a ton of fish that you can feed to your students in the dining hall. Some of the biggest fish that students enjoy are the Albanian herring and white trout. You will also have a lot of golden and platinum fish, which you can sell for a lot of gold. You can also sell any other fish to the merchants that you don't plan on feeding to your students. When you're fishing during this event, you should only hook a fish when its icon is either red or golden, or alternatively, if you're on the 3rd rotation. Whichever comes first is what you will take. This ensures you get the maximum rated fish per bait, giving you more experience. By purchasing all of the bait every month and dumping them all on Fistfuls of Fish, you will give Byleth thousands upon thousands of professor experience points, which will allow him to hit the max professor rank by the end of the ethereal moon. You might hear people say that other fishing events can be nice and just as efficient, but if you want to earn a ton of gold, max out your professor rank in part 1, and recruit all of your students, then Fistfuls of Fish is not only important, but necessary. You cannot accomplish this without it. If you want to get max rank in part 1, you have to fish with a lot of bait on the ethereal moon. There are no alternatives to this. The only downside to this is how long it takes. It will take you an hour and a half to 2 hours to get through all of your bait. But once this is done, you no longer need to purchase bait anymore. You will have enough fish for the rest of the game. Lecture questions. Just like Renown, there isn't really a whole lot to say about lecture questions, but it's important that I bring attention to this. Once a month, at the start of every month, you will have a student approach you with a question. I highly recommend you have a guide with the list of answers here, as anytime you give the asking student the best answer, you will get a large amount of professor experience, which actually goes a very long way to maxing your rank. So it's in your best interest to ensure that you get the correct answer every time. This also gives the student asking the question plus 50 motivation, and any student with the student asking the question plus 25 motivation. Experience books. Some of the months in part 1 will have books lying around the monastery that give Byleth extra experience. It is absolutely in your best interest to gather these books. I'll throw a table here on screen showing what moon they show up on and where they're located. Feel free to screenshot or reference this video on a later date. Other notes. There are some other brief features that I want to quickly talk on. First, lost items. You should always do the lost items. They give support ranks to unrecruited students and help you recruit them. They also improve motivation for your recruited students. Second is gifts. You can purchase gifts from the merchants and give them to recruits who love them to help build support and to recruit them. However, this is not necessary. Just dining with your recruits will be enough to win them over to your house. I would only recommend this if you're trying to get a student recruited very early on in your playthrough, for whatever your reason may be. Third, training Byleth. If you're trying to get Byleth into a class, but he needs faculty training to reach it, This is where your personal preference is going to come in. If you try and train Byleth, you're going to make it harder on yourself to max out your level before part 1 ends. I personally wouldn't worry about this. By the time you max out your professor level in part 1, you will have plenty of time left in the remaining part 1 months and all of part 2 to help train Byleth. Professor rank is the most important stat for Byleth in this game and should be treated as such. At the end of the day though, it is your call. Lastly is the tournaments. Tournaments give 300 experience and some gold per every tournament that your student wins. This gives 100 more experience than dining does, but the problem is that tournaments don't help you recruit anyone. I would recommend using your activity points on tournaments once you are satisfied with your recruitment and are ready to bring it to an end. This will help you max out your professor rank a little bit quicker. However, do note that this is not necessary to max out your professor rank. Just dining, EXP books, and Ethereal Moon fishing will be enough to max out your professor rank. How to plan each month. Now that I've gone over the important aspects of Monastery, it's time to tell you how to plan and schedule each month in the year. Luckily for us, each month should be scheduled the exact same, allowing you to build a habit of efficiently handling Monastery. This will help you fly through the Monastery parts of the game quickly without having them feel like they're dragging on. Let me show you how to schedule. For this example, I will be using the Guardian Moon. But again, as this will be the plan and layout for each month, you can substitute the Guardian Moon with any other month in the year. You can see here that in the Guardian Moon, we have 3 lecture days and 4 free days before the mission. The way you want to plan this is simple. Anytime there is a free day that is immediately followed by a lecture, you want to explore. Anytime there's a free day that is followed by the mission, you want to do battles. It's that simple. Explore when there is a lecture coming up and battle on the last weekend before the mission. But let me talk a little bit more about each one in a little more depth. Exploring. As I have shown during this video, you want to have a checklist of the following for each exploration session. I'll show a table with the list on screen here for your reference. First is to go to the greenhouse and farm food and stat boosters for your students. Prioritize the root vegetables. Second, go to dining hall and use all activity points feeding your students. First, feed your lectured students, and then feed all students you're trying to recruit. Then, you want to do any quest or missions that the NPCs give you during the month that needs to be done before the mission. Fourth, purchase all fishing bait from the store until the Ethereal Moon. You can only do this once, so do it the first exploration so you won't have to worry about it later or risk forgetting about it. If money is tight, you can wait until an upcoming weekend that same month when you get more funds through your group activities. Lastly, depending on the month, go to the location where Professor Experience books are located. See the table in the previous section. This will be your simple checklist that will allow you to easily max your Professor rank when followed. I always run this process in all of my 3 houses runs, and it has never once failed me to get max Professor level in part 1 during the Ethereal Moon. If you want proof of this working, I have multiple playthroughs of 3 houses here on the channel where I follow my own advice here to a T. But what about the battles? Battles also benefit from having a higher professor level. A higher professor level means more battles you can do in a month, and more battles a month means more experience. The more experience means easier times on missions. Which battles you want to do is completely up to you. You can go for paralogs for better battalions and items, or you can do a side battle for ore and gold. It's up to you, but if you prioritize paralogs, you'll find yourself at a very good level to tackle anything that maddening mode, or really any difficulty, has to throw at you. How do you like to handle Monastery, and what activities do you like to focus on to build your army? I would love to learn what you do in Monastery and how you like to handle it. This guide is how I personally play through 3 houses, and it has never once let me down, and I know it won't let you down either. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and let me know in the comments what you think. If you want to see more Fire Emblem content, feel free to subscribe and check out my playthroughs of the game here on the channel if you want to see these strategies in action. With all that being said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.